Hello, this is Daryl Scott with another version of New Moon, New Music. And this is episode 3. And we're going to continue this talk on this reprint of this record called Modern Hymns. And it's the new modern hymns, as we've been talking about like on the last episode. So again, the record's been out of print for 11 years or more, and we're just getting it back into print. First time into digital actually ever will be on this time around. And a new song in there like we've been talking about, the Cat Stevens song. So we're going to continue with this sequence, song at a time, talking about this record and how it was made and who's on it and just some interesting stuff about it. So first up today is a song of Kris Kristofferson's called Jesus Was a Capricorn. And I remember my mom had this as an 8-track back in the day. And she bought the 8-track because of Chris's song called Why Me, Lord, which was a big hit. Kind of in pop and rock stations, but certainly country. And so she bought the CD or the 8-track for that. But she didn't like any of the other songs. She just liked her Why Me, Lord thing. And so she gave me the recording, and that's where I got into Kristofferson's, maybe his first record that I had. He had earlier records, but that was the first one that I had handed down from my mom. And Jesus Was a Capricorn was the name of the record, and it introduced me to Kristofferson on his own records as opposed to writing, Sunday Morning Coming Down, and Cash recorded it and helped me make it through the night, Sammy Smith, For the Good Times, Ray Price. And there was a time where Kristofferson was just killing it as a songwriter, kind of just behind folks like Tom T. Hall, who just kept great songs in the charts. Well, suddenly it was Kristofferson's turn, and he was knocking it out. And he was also putting out his own records, and so that's where this comes from, this song. And it's just a brilliant song. It's funny, it's smart, and it's all things Kristofferson, because Chris was just, is still just one of the best. So this particular recording, I had my core band again of Dirk Powell. I think he played frailing banjo on this one. Danny Thompson on bass, and myself. I think I'm on dobro actually on this one, because I had David Greer playing guitar on this. So again, if you keep in mind that I kept Danny Thompson, Dirk Powell, and me on every track, and we changed our instruments, me and Dirk. But we'd bring in other people, other players to sit with us song per song, and I would choose those folks and figure out their time to come play live in the studio with me. And that's what we did. And so that's David Greer that's going to be in here on the guitar. Yes, and Stuart Duncan on fiddle. And I was on dobro on this one. That's tracking live, singing live. What we overdubbed, though, on this particular track of Jesus Was a Capricorn was Odessa Settles. I had Odessa come in when she could after the fact and do an overdub with me on this, on vocals, and she just knocks it out because she's Odessa Settles. So have a listen to Kristofferson's Jesus Was a Capricorn.
Jesus was a Capricorn, he ate organic food. He believed in love and peace and never wore no shoes. Long-haired beard and sandals and a funky bunch of friends. I reckon we just nail him up if he came down again. 'Cause everybody's gotta have somebody to look down on. They can feel better than at any time they play. cussing, rednecks cussing hippies for their hair. Others laugh at straights who laugh at freaks who laugh at squares. Some folks hate the whites who hate the blacks who hate the Klan. But most of us hate anything that we don't understand. 'Cause everybody's gotta have somebody to look down on, who they can feel better than at any time they please. Someone doing something dirty, decent folks can frown on. If you can't find nobody else, then please help yourself to me. Help yourself to me. Come on and help yourself. Help yourself to me. Help yourself to me.
Next up is a great singer-songwriter from the 70s. He probably started actually in the 60s with a song in the folk world called Greenback Dollar. And his mom was Mae Axton, who helped write Elvis Presley's Heartbreak Hotel, I do believe. And so Hoyt must have grown up in, songwriter atmosphere. So I'm talking about Hoyt Axton. And Hoyt had a great album called Fearless that I had back in the day when I was a teenager, when I was on my track of following singer-songwriters. Hoyt had an album called Fearless that I thought was my favorite, that I would just keep returning to. And this song, The Devil, is on that record, but a bunch of other really great songs like Evangelina, which I've recorded before on my live Horoso album. So Hoyt is just one of those guys, those who know him and know how great he is. He wrote a song for Three Dog Night, a big hit called Joy to the World. So Hoyt was a songwriter, but he was also making his own records. And that's, again, where I kind of learned where, as a writer, you don't only just get cuts if you can, you also put out your own records. And all these people that are pretty much on this recording of the New Modern Hymns are people who did get cuts in the world of getting other people to record their stuff, but also put out records of their own. And that's basically where I picked up on that way to go. And Hoyt Axton made many, many records. Mostly he was getting traction on country radio and singer-songwriter stuff, wherever that would be played. FM was just beginning back in these days in the mid-'70s. And FM was considered like the outlier. AM was sort of like there's all the hits or talk radio or this or that perhaps. But FM was a new thing back then where you'd get stereo. And then they go into deep cuts and stuff like that. So that shook hands, and I was living in Southern California where we had great FM stations going on, and the singer-songwriter world was largely out of LA. Like that's where Hoyt Axton recorded, for example. But so did a whole bunch of other folks like Joni Mitchell, Jackson Brown, James Taylor, mostly in LA. So that was all just hotbed all at the same time while it was influencing me. You know, a 16-year-old or 18-year-old and things like that. So Hoyt Axton, he's just a very freedom kind of songwriter. He's not writing hits in the normal way, but they're becoming hits. But he's just his own unique songwriting voice. He also had a big baritone voice, like a bear kind of thing, just a big old strong guy. And he would contrast that in his recordings by having mostly female background singers who would be singing sometimes an octave above him or an octave and a third. So he'd have, high singers and then his low voice kind of down below it. I found later on that Leonard Cohen was doing something very similar, because Leonard had that low voice and he would contrast that in his recordings with having sort of angelic singers, female singers, way up high, and that would be a great contrast. Well, Hoyt did that as well because of his baritone thing. And so on this recording, you're going to hear, let's see, we got Odessa Settles back in there. So she's kind of a call and response with me, as you'll hear maybe midway toward the end. It's Odessa that's kind of that more featured voice. But I too did what Hoyt did, which was I brought in female voices. So I had Kathy Chiavala in there, a great soprano. Had Susie Ragsdale in there, alto. I had John Cowan on the session, and all these folks were in that same room that I've been talking about. Danny Flowers was in there. Danny was also playing dobro on this track. Another cool thing about this track is it's got Dirk Powell on fiddle, and Dirk's more of an old-time kind of fiddler. But then I also had, I think it was an overdub, we brought in Stuart Duncan, and Stuart is just, man, can play everything amazingly well. He also plays really good old-time. So in the fiddling, you'll hear a real contrast between Dirk's old-time playing and then Stuart's more kind of modern-ish, but still sitting there responding with Dirk as a fiddler. And that's a real good feature of this track as well. And Danny Thompson on upright bass. Listen to the bass on this. To me, I think what Danny played on this track, if there was such a thing as a folk bass study, this song would be a feature in how to teach what folk bass playing could actually become and be. Danny's a particular kind of bass player. He's not the regular cut of a bass player. He's busier than most folks. He's more melodic than most bass players. And you hear him almost dancing. There's a dance quality he brings to his bass playing, and it's all in this song right here. So check out Hoyt Axton's The Devil.
Don't you know it's been raining in the mountains and the river's on the rise? Cannot hardly reach the other side. And the devil, he's in trouble, I can see it in his eyes. If you don't give him shelter, he'll have no place to hide. The devil deals him dying and he travels in a hearse. He treats you like a dog now, he'd like to treat you worse. But he don't have the answers, and if he did, he'd lie. See, the devil is a joker and he don't want you alive. Some you win, some you lose, and the winners all grin and the losers say, deal the cards again. Oh, won't you deal the cards again? LA's in California, Lord, I've been there many times. It is an education to be sure. Oh, I loved a lady there, she opened up my eyes. She ran a dancing school, it was the front, she loved the Lord. And some you win and some you lose, and the winners all grin and the losers say, oh, deal the cards again. Oh, won't you deal the cards again? Oh, it's been raining in the mountains and the river's on the rise. Cannot hardly reach the other side. And the devil, he's in trouble, I can see it in his eyes. If you don't give him shelter, he'll have no place to hide. Oh, if you don't give him shelter, he'll have no place to hide.
that devil, Hoyt did it on his record too. You know, you're going between the song ahead of it, and then he goes, "Don't you know it's been raining?" And he just scares you as a listener. And so I did that on this recording too, trying to scare you, I guess. And next up now, we changed the pace on this, you know, where it's been singer-songwriters like the whole record through. Another real influential person to me was Pat Metheny, the Pat Metheny group specifically. And he, in that group, had Lyle Mays on keyboards. So when I say Pat Metheny, I really am saying Pat Metheny and Lyle Mays, because to me, back in those days, and this was, oh my gosh, probably early 80s, when I started listening to Pat Metheny and Lyle Mays. I first heard of them through a Joni Mitchell live record. She did an album, a live album with Pat Metheny, Lyle Mays, Jaco Pastorius on bass, Don Elias, I believe, on drums or percussion. And it was just a super group. And Joni was always trying new things anyway and very cutting edge. She literally had the Pat Metheny group, in essence, as her backup band, because Jaco played with Pat and Lyle in the early days too. So in essence, there's Joni Mitchell with this group that became just a major jazz band for the next decades, really. And so then I started listening to Pat Metheny group, which was Lyle Mays and Pat primarily as the major voices of that, players of that. So they had this odd song back in the day called James. And I know that I've read where James, they called it that because of James Taylor. So it's not often that jazzers, you know, with full jazz vocabulary, it's only been in the last few decades where it seems like they honor and pay homage to non-jazz stuff, like in this case, James Taylor. So they wrote this song, and I know they must have loved James Taylor music, because they named this thing James. And it has, you know, a very melodic quality, really cool chords like a lot of James Taylor songs. And I always just really loved that, you know, that these great jazzers, you know, wrote a tune and called it James. And so what this is an instrumental. There's no lyrics on this thing. The other thing about, well, I chose this instrumental in what's otherwise a group of songs, singer-songwriters that influenced me, but Pat Metheny group influenced me too. And that's why it's here in this recording. And the other thing about this song called James, or this tune called James, is I felt I could play it on banjo. And so I kind of arranged it to where I would be the banjo guy, and I was tracking, you know, in that same room again. And we had David Greer on guitar, so I'm sure it was when I had Greer on another song, I was like, hey, let's do this other song here called James. And I was on banjo, Greer was on acoustic guitar, Danny Thompson, of course, on bass, and Dirk, who could play a bunch of things, I had him play accordion on this. And Dirk is a button accordion player guy, like Cajun style, just like he's got it. But this song would not handle a Cajun style accordion. So I went home and got my piano accordion to bring to Dirk and just handed it to him, and you know, off we go on this track. He gets a solo on it. Danny Thompson gets a solo. We all get solos on it, including Stuart Duncan, who's on fiddle, and he was tracking with us too. So we're just doing it live in the room. You know, the solos are going live. Everything is what we get, and then I added just 2 overdubs to it after the fact, and that was Kenny Malone on just I think he played some triangle or something, or just very subtle. He didn't really play like a a constant part throughout the song. He was more of a feature guy. And then the other overdub I did was I sent this track to Maura Smiley. And Maura is just a great vocalist. I would meet her at song school out in Lyons, Colorado during the Folk Fest out there. And she was always a teacher there every year teaching vocals, so she's an amazing vocalist. And I know she has classical training, but she's also an old-time singer and writer. She's a choral person. She can do, it seems, anything. And I just thought, you know what? I just want to hear Maura singing on this thing. And there's no lyrics, so it's just humming or ahs and oohs and all that. So I just, told her, hey, just go wild on this. I'll edit it and figure it out later. Just do whatever you feel like on it. So Maura Smiley is on this as well. And I'm really proud of this track that we could kind of pull it off with, in essence, bluegrass instruments, so to speak, or certainly folk instruments, of a Pat Metheny group song. And that's really written by Pat Metheny and Lyle Mays. Lyle was the keyboard guy, Pat the guitarist. On this song that I know they named after James Taylor, and it's called James. Great. Well, that brings us to our last song for today's episode. Again, I'm breaking down the recording probably in 3 different sections of breaking it down, and just kind of going through the track, talking about it, and any things that I kind of remember about it here these years later. So again, this record was made in 2007. So at this point, 17 years ago, and it went out of print with the lease thing that I had back then in 2013, I do believe. And so we're bringing it back in print, adding the Cat Stevens song to it that I found that had been lost, really. And just bringing it out because I just think it's a really good record. I had such great help on this recording with engineers, George Massenberg's room, with these players and choirs and string sections, and anything I felt like doing, I did, and very pleased with it, and breaking it down track by track, so you can know about it. So we're going to finish today's episode with one of my favorite singer-songwriter folks. Was not California, LA centric. He was Nashville centric by way of Texas. So Nashville has had a huge wave, and almost always did, in country music of Texas songwriters. You could even say Texas singer-songwriters, like Christofferson, like Guy Clark, like Townes Van Zandt, Billy Joe Shaver, and on and on and on. Texas has more than been represented as singer-songwriters. Anything having to do with country, even folk, certainly Americana, pop rock. Texas has always been present in the songwriter land. And one of those that first showed up into Nashville on the early side, before Christofferson, before any of the others that followed, Willie Nelson was one of the early Texas guys that came to Nashville and camped out for a few years. Got great cuts, tried his artist career here, and in his case, it was only when he went back to Texas that he just started doing what in the hell he wanted to, and it became what we all know as the great Willie Nelson. He was great prior to that, but the world found out just how great Willie was going to be for all these decades, and now Willie's in his 90s. Right in there with him, pretty much, in Nashville back in these days, and that could be late 50s, could be early 60s. I didn't research it to the T, but Mickey Newberry was one of the early Texas cats here. And Mickey Newberry was one of my favorite writers. He would get cuts in the country field. He even had cuts in the rock field. I just dropped in to see what condition my condition was in. Was a big rock hit for the Kenny Rogers in the first edition, I think they were called, back in the 60s. It could have been 70s. But that was Mickey Newberry's song. So Mickey was getting great cuts from Joan Baez, Judy Collins, but also country music and bluegrass. So Mickey was tearing it up. But where he really tore it up was on his own records. So I was one of those guys who listened to Mickey Newberry records because I knew he was one of the best that we had. So I come from a Mickey Newberry background. Once I found Mickey, I hung on to him. And so this song that is coming up is a Mickey Newberry song that I did not learn from Mickey Newberry's records. I didn't know about Mickey yet on his own record, so I learned this from a Waylon Jennings album. And it was sort of right at the verge where Waylon was coming out of sort of clean-cut Waylon into the outlaw wailing. It was right on that verge, and that was a good period for Waylon, I thought, because he seemed to be putting out maybe 2 or 3 records a year. It seemed RCA was just trying to figure out what to do with him because they knew he was a great artist. They never had landed the Full Tilt stuff. Although I was a fan of all those records before his Outlaw period, I got to tell you, I knew that Waylon was great prior to the Outlaw image thing. So this song was recorded by Waylon right at that verge as he was kind of tipping the scales toward the Outlaw thing. With this great song of Mickey Newberry's, and I just always thought it was great writing. It would be great writing if it were a play or a poem or an essay. And that's the thing I find about great songwriters. They're not just great songwriters and catchy tunes and all that kind of stuff. They're great writers. And that's what makes a great songwriter, is they're a great writer. I think a great songwriter could write a great speech. They could write an essay, a great essay, articles, poetry, and certainly songs. We know this. And so this song just always got me because of the narration, the character in the song. He's stuck in San Francisco. And it's sort of an interior monologue kind of song about being stuck and not having enough money to go back home, not having enough money to eat or anything. And Mickey could really nail those kind of characters. He could really make a study of those. And the other thing I want to point out about this song of Mickey's, and this happened a lot on Mickey stuff, he would establish his song in first verse, and then there's a chorus, and then a second verse. If you'll track the following of the song, you'll see he goes deeper and deeper into the character as the song progresses. And then by the end, the character is telling us things he couldn't have told us in the first verse because he hadn't gotten dark enough yet or deep enough or down in it yet. But what you'll notice is toward the end, the character really starts laying it out. About his state and how he sees things. And this song is a perfect example of Mickey's ability to do that. He did it quite a bit on songs, Mickey Newberry. And this is a perfect example. So what I have here, and I wanted to track it with, we had Danny on the upright bass. Let's see what Dirk play on this one. Yeah, Dirk is on accordion, and he waits until the end of the song to even enter in. So check that out, where he comes in. And the body of the song really is Danny Flowers on slide resonator, Susie Ragsdale on vocals, Danny Flowers is singing vocals too, and me on lead vocals, and I'm playing guitar. And that's the bulk of this song. And then at the end you hear Dirk enter, and then as an overdub, I literally have my son Gabe Scott, and I played chains, so to give it sort of where a snare would normally play, we just drop some chains on a table on the beat, blanc, blanc, and you'll hear that in there as well. So this is Mickey Newberry's song called Frisco Depot.
Oh, Frisco ain't a mighty long way if you can afford to fly. But it might as well be the moon, Lord, when you're as broke as I. Here I sit with my head in my hands, just watching the trains roll by. Lord, the helping hand mission man warned me. The nights here got cold. When you're cold, there's nothing as welcome as sunshine. And when you're dry, there's nothing as welcome as rain, sweet rain. And when you're alone, there's nothing no slow when you're a footlord, there's nothing as fast as a train. Well, Frisco's a mighty rich city. Now that ain't no lie. Why, they have some buildings that reach nearly a mile in the sky. And everyone's so busy they can't tell me the reason why. There's a world full of people, so damn many people alone. 'Cause when you're alone, life just don't seem worth living. But while you're alive, you gotta learn to live with your pain. Unless you've been wrong for so long, there's no one that's left for forgiving. And you find yourself searching your past for the links to the chain.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, Mickey Newberry. And, well, that's going to finish our episode today. Those are 4 more songs from the record, The New Modern Hymns, a reprint of an out-of-print record. And we're going to continue next time and probably wrap up the rest of the album, because there's some good stuff coming up on episodes 2 in the future about this recording. Got a Guy Clark song coming up, Leonard Cohen song coming up, John Hartford, and they've all got stories, all these songs and how I recorded them, who I had in there. It all, if I can remember it, I'll be telling it to you. So stay tuned on our New Moon New Music series that comes out every new moon. And we'll just keep talking about this, okay? Thanks for joining us. Thanks to Abraham Scott for audio and video, and Angela Scott. We got Bill Boston there. And it takes a number of us to get this out to you. And I hope you appreciate it. Thank you so much.